there, this is Dr. Joel Rudman, your state representative for the Florida House of Representatives District 3, and it's an honor for me to be speaking out on behalf of the Pregnancy Resource Center of Navarre, and specifically to be speaking out in favor of those of us that are pro-life. I can tell you, although I'm new at the political game, I've been a physician in the state of Florida since 1997, and I can tell you that it's quite fitting that you ask a physician their opinion of the abortion dilemma, especially with this amendment coming up on the ballot here. I can tell you that as a family practice doctor in Navarre, I'm often on the front lines. It's usually doctors like me that walk into a patient room and tell a young lady or an older lady that they are in fact pregnant. Sometimes patients will come in with just a vague symptom of nausea. Sometimes they come in with an actual missed period, so there is some sort of idea or some sort of concern that they might be pregnant. And I think it's probably fitting that I basically give you the same story that I gave in the House of Representatives subcommittee when House Bill 7 came before my committee. So again, as a physician, when we test that pregnancy test and it is positive, it's my responsibility to go in and break the news to the patient. Sometimes the news is well received. Sometimes the news comes with a little bit of shock to the patient, and you can see that shock on the patient's face. I've seen that look many times. I've seen it in a 17-year-old who thinks there's no way that they could possibly be pregnant. I've seen that look of horror, that look of disbelief in a 48-year-old female patient who thought she was too old to get pregnant. So it's not unusual for me to see that emotion wash over the faces of my patients. What we normally do here in my office, we normally give that news to our patients. We congratulate them. But if we are seeing that look of shock, that look of disbelief, we ask our patients to go home and think about the news, discuss it with their families, with their significant other, with their spouse, and we usually bring them back in the office the following day or within the next 48 hours. And I can tell you with almost 100% certainty that those patients that go home and talk to their families and talk to their spouses about the news, they usually come back, almost at 100% accuracy, they come back saying that they plan on keeping the pregnancy. And as I told the House subcommittee, I've seen tons of patients, tons of women who initially, although they were shocked, they were confused, they had a little sense of disbelief, I can tell you I've seen those women unanimously come back and say, Dr. Rudman, thank God that I kept this pregnancy. Thank God that I saw this through, because that news that you told me 12 months ago, 14 months ago, that news is now my young baby girl. It's now my little baby boy, and they are the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. So I have seen those parents come back for their child's 2-month well check, their 4-month well check. I've seen those families come together at a 6-month baby well check. And the mother and I, we often lock eyes and we realize that this young child that I'm treating in the office, that was the child that even for a split second, the mother was contemplating ending that pregnancy. And again, in that shared look in our eyes, I can see the mother, if she doesn't verbally tell me, she physically tells me, she looks me in the eye, and you can just see the look of, thank goodness we did not make a rash decision in this case. And often the mothers will voice that to me. They'll say, thank God that we didn't choose death. Thank God that we chose life, because this little baby is the best thing that happened to me. I'd also like to share a story with you guys going back to my medical school days. There's another side of the argument that's, we're coming up on an abortion amendment this November, and the people who are pushing that amendment they're trying to couch the language in terms of, well, this is a medical procedure. There's really nothing emotional about it. It's just a procedure, just like cleaning your teeth or having a hysterectomy. You know, it's health care. And guys, I'm here to tell you that that is a false argument. I just want to tell you about my personal experience back in medical school as a young medical student. So I remember my time back at the University of Mississippi, my third year of medical school. That's when you actually start treating patients. You go from a classroom setting to a hospital setting. My very first rotation actually turned out to be OB/GYN. So I basically lived on the floor of the obstetrics suite there at the University Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi. And you know, as medical students, third-year medical students, we did everything. We took temperatures, we cleaned rooms, we took histories and physicals. We did all the, what we would call scut work, all the work that nobody else would want to do. So we were involved in every single patient that came in and out of that labor and delivery suite. And it probably wasn't until about my 5th or 6th day on duty, when I was there working overnight, that I had the strangest experience. Again, keep in mind that every young woman that presented to the labor and delivery suite, whether they were actually going through labor or whether it was a false alarm, every patient that walked through those doors, the medical students had an interaction with. And I always remember it was the middle of the night, 11 o'clock, midnight, one night when I was on call working there in the labor and delivery suite, when I saw the residents usher in a young lady. She couldn't have been more than 17, 18 years old. They ushered her into the labor and delivery suite and immediately took her to a room over to the left. And come to think of it, it was a room that I had never been in. And so, you know, you wonder, well, that's odd, because normally that would be me bringing the patient in. Normally that would be me in that room taking the history. The whole night went by, and I was never once asked to go in that room. I never once saw that patient's name go up on the big labor and delivery board where every patient's name was listed, along with their age, their condition, their status. So the young lady in the room to the left, it was almost like a secret case, almost like a mystery. And you know, after a few hours went by, I went to the medical resident. I said, hey, what do you need me to do in that room? And you could just see the look in the medical resident's eye that they were doing something that maybe they shouldn't be doing, or maybe certainly something that they had a moral problem with. And the medical resident turned to me. I'll never forget this guy, and I owe him a great debt, because the medical resident turned to me and he said, no, you do not want to know what's going on in that room. You need to stay well away for your conscience. So there's no doubt in my mind that they were performing an elective abortion in that room, because that's the only thing that makes sense. And that was my introduction to the whole abortion debate, for something that's supposed to be an accepted procedure, for something that's supposed to be just another healthcare choice. I can tell you, to that medical resident, it was not just another healthcare choice. I can tell you, to the young woman that was brought into the labor and delivery suite, we never got to know her name. We never got to know her condition. And by the next morning, when I woke up from maybe 2 hours sleep, all traces of the lady were gone. It's like she had never been there. Well, you know, I'm always so honored to come here and see what y'all do, because it's amazing stuff. So you may not know this. I was born in the Deep South. I was born to a Southern family, a Catholic family. So my mother and father, they already had 4 young children of their own, and they were all kind of grouped there together. You know, they were all born 1 year after the other after the other. 7 years later, they had me. I was the 5th child and last child. So you have to be born into a Southern Catholic family 7 years later than all my brothers and sisters. And I have that relationship with my mother and my father where, we speak freely in my house. So my mother used to always kind of joke about it, right? Because the issue would come up, why were you born so late? And, we would sit around the dinner table and my mother would laugh. And she didn't mean anything by it. But she would say, you were the accident. How would you like to know that the person who might have saved your life was an accident? Or that your state legislator was an accident? Or to some people in Navarre, I'm their rock star. How would you like to think of the idea that your rock star was an accident? And so I think my point is, all life is sacred. We don't get to choose our kids. I know a lot of people wish they could choose their kids. We don't. We do the best with what we have. And I think to know that I was born at a time when this country was unashamedly pro-life and my parents made, it was probably an easier decision for them back then. I think we need to get back to those times. I think we need to get back to a country that is unashamedly pro-life and that we value each and every life, each and every gift that God gives us.
So Dr. Rudman, how often do you feel there are abortions done because of the health of the mother?
That's a common refrain that we hear all the time from the pro-abortion crowd, that somehow this is a health care decision or somehow doctors are having to weigh the lives of different patients, that only one's going to make it and one won't. I can tell you, I've had a Florida license since 1997. I've been treating patients in the state of Florida for a long time. I've personally delivered over 100 babies. And I can tell you that in my personal experience, I have never, ever had an instance arise where as a physician, I had to choose between a mother and her child. So if you're asking me, those decisions never occur. That is another lie that's being told to the citizens of Florida, that somehow doctors are going to let mothers die on the operating table because of current law. And that is simply untrue. So Ellen, I spoke earlier about how it's often my responsibility to tell a woman when she is in fact pregnant. And so when I have a patient that's trying to make the right decision and I refer them to the Pregnancy Resource Center of Navarre, what can they expect when they come here?
We will welcome them and offer them tons of resources that we have here. And one of the biggest ones is our education program, where they watch videos with a virtual advocate and they earn free money. We call it baby bucks. Wow. And they can accumulate it for the pregnancy and for 1 year after. So they might earn like $700 with us. So they come into our baby boutique and spend it on boy clothes, girl clothes, diapers, wipes, blankets, a stroller, a crib. And we help them with an OB/GYN if they don't have one, and insurance. And those are our top 3.
Can you show me the baby boutique?
I'd love to.
Let's go take a look.
Come on.
I'm so honored to tell my story and to speak out against Amendment 4. Say no to the abortion amendment. Say yes to life. And thank you guys for the honor of speaking to you. And thank you so much for listening to my story today. God bless you and God bless the great state of Florida.